Hi, I'm Cassie Burton, host of the Curiosity Junkie podcast. I want to personally thank you for taking the time to listen today. Please feel free to share your favorite episodes and don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons. There are a couple of ways you can help support the show. First, take a moment to rate the podcast and leave us a review. Greatly appreciate that. Second, hit the donate button or head over to cassieburton.com to learn more and get signed up for the monthly newsletter. Thanks again for listening and enjoy the show. Today's guest is a Vedic meditation teacher and co-founder of Soozy's Grain-Free, your favorite bakery treats reinvented. Please welcome Susan Chen to the podcast. Hi, Susan Chen. Welcome to Curiosity Junkie podcast.
Hey, Cassie. So nice to be here.
I am thrilled to have you on. There are a couple of things we're going to talk about. The main one, and the reason I reached out, is to talk about Vedic meditation. I want to know about it. I have no idea. I know a lot about different kinds of meditation. So let's talk about Vedic because I have no idea what that is.
I would be happy to share everything that I know with you on Vedic meditation.
Wonderful.
Vedic meditation is an eyes closed practice that is quite different compared to other styles of eyes closed meditation techniques out there. And the one that's catching everybody's attention is under the big umbrella of mindfulness, right?
Yes.
And so the biggest difference with Vedic meditation versus mindfulness is a really big sort of mindset shift, pardon the pun in that, in that, instead of having various techniques to shepherd thoughts or witness thoughts within like a mindfulness meditation context, Vedic meditation actually follows the naturalness of the tendencies of the mind and the body to actually enter a relaxed state such that we step beyond and transcend thought together. Now, for most people who are listening to this or who haven't had, contact with Vedic meditation, you would think to yourself, like, what does it mean to step beyond thought? I feel like I live in my thoughts all day long. Even when I'm sleeping, I have dreams that are filled with thinking. And so what I like to, the experience that is the most similar, right, to transcending your thinking are in those few delicious seconds as you're falling asleep at night and slipping into the sleep state. It's like, the mind's been racing all day, and then you might even be racing to sleep because sleep hygiene is so important these days, right? So we're starting to get anxious about sleep hygiene. And we finally, the cheek hits the pillow and you start to feel that jumble of thoughts begin to, loosen a little bit in your mind and your awareness. And what begins to happen, you think to yourself, Cassie, oh my God, I've just been waiting for this moment, like all afternoon or all evening. Let me just relax into it. Now, what we have seen through anthropological studies is that moment and that gap in time where we step beyond the thinking layer, but have not yet entered another state of consciousness, was actually regularly experienced by humans during the hunter and gatherer stage of our existence as a species. And what this really is stepping beyond our thinking tendencies and stepping beyond the waking state, but not yet sleeping, right? But resting the body in such a profound state that the body begins to very naturally release stress and enjoy deep relaxation at a super rapid pace. Now, this is a natural normal functioning of the body that we have began to lose, right? As we have stepped into the modern householder life of lots and lots and lots of demands. And so within Vedic meditation, and this is rooted in a 5,000 plus year old practice that comes from India, the land of Veda, which is Sanskrit for knowledge. What we begin to do is we begin to show the body how to rest really, really deeply and begin to step beyond our thinking. Because what we know is that lots of thinking causes, and not only causes more stress, but also is reflective of the stress that's stored cellularly in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And what we know is that if we can rest the body so deeply, deeper than the waking state, basically meaning the metabolic state that the two of us are currently experiencing right now, and what you're, as a listener, you're experiencing right now by listening to this podcast, if we can begin to allow the body to rest deeper than that and allow the mind as a byproduct to step beyond thinking, then we begin to enjoy a fully restored physiology, one where stress has no chance of catching up to us, right? And what begins to happen then is that the vice grip of our mind, the vice grip of, pains and traumas that we're feeling in the body begin to loosen a little bit, because we're re-enlivening that natural creative intelligence of healing in the mind and the body. And we begin to build this foundation of nourishment, of rest, of vitality. And as you know, when that begins to happen in the mind and the body, everything in our life begins to flourish in all of the different ways. And it'll look different for everybody else. I know that in previous styles of meditation that I practiced before, it would be like the 21-day challenge for more focus, right? Or a meditation for better sleep, or a meditation for anxiety, which is what I had lots and lots of before learning Vedic meditation about 7 years ago. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. But what all of those things are actually imbalances that are expressive of an overload of accumulation of stress in the body. So when we begin to reverse the process of stress accumulation, then anything that was out of balance for any particular person will become back into balance. And so this meditation practice, we say that it really begins to water the root of the tree versus, painting the leaves green because they've gone prematurely a little brown for all the reasons of, our modern day life. So a quick snippet of what Vedic meditation is. We also use a mantra in our meditation practice. So it's not a focusing technique. The only time that we're applying a little bit of effort in our practice is when we make it a priority to sit down and meditate. And I'm sure for all of your listeners, we can all relate to having meditation feel a little bit like a chore sometimes, but it is true that you got to make time for it. You have to make time for it. And so we place all the effort in this meditation practice of making time for it. And then when you close the eyes, when you come to learn Vedic meditation, you'll receive a personalized mantra that is, outfitted for you, your stage of life, and your psychophysiological type. And because that sound is matched on a personalized level, what begins to happen is that it feels so good when you begin to repeat it inside your meditation practice that you don't have to fight or shepherd or exclude thinking in the process to have a really enjoyable meditation. So if you were to think about it, let's say that we were all at a party together and we were in one room having a very engaging conversation, right? And then all of a sudden, Cassie, you hear your favorite song from your childhood days in another room, right? And so what would happen is your attention would naturally gravitate towards placing some attention in that room. And you might even say, hey, Susan, you want to finish our conversation out in the kitchen? Because I love this song. It reminds me of, my favorite days in college or something like that. So that's how the mantra in the tradition of Vedic meditation works, with allowing the mind to settle down really, really quickly. Because in my own personal experience of previous styles of meditation, it was like I was tired of battling my thoughts inside meditation. We spend all of this time outside of meditation trying to do that, right? And, sitting down to do it, it felt frustrating to me. So beginning to learn to meditate with this mantra that has no intended meaning in any language, that's paired to you, begins to really almost act like a handrail in being able to settle the mind into those more relaxed and natural states. And that's what we do, 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon.
I love that. That's what I was going to ask. It just in listening to what you were saying, it sounded like it was more of an evening thing, but you can do it morning and night to really just kind of put you in a good place.
Yes. So the program of Vedic meditation, and one of the things that I love so much about it is that it is a bulletproof, systematic, and procedural way of allowing ourselves to have the regular experience of stepping beyond our stress, stepping beyond our mistaken identities of who we are. And in the course that all Vedic meditation teachers teach, we do a lot of applied practicalities of how to fit it into your everyday life. And the program is we come in the morning, we wake up in the morning, and the program is to rise and meditate. And then we fill up our nervous system, our state of awareness with rest and adaptation energy. And, we go out and we spend it doing great things for the world throughout our day. And then in the afternoon, when we're starting to feel a little sluggish, right, in my corporate days, and you might, this might resonate with you too, Cassie, since you are also in the corporate world, right? Like 2, 3 in the afternoon, I'm like, oh, who wants to go to Starbucks? Really want that Rice Krispie treat and like a sugary chai, right? So instead of doing that, we sit down and we do our afternoon meditation, 20 minutes, and that begins to fill up that storehouse of rest. And while we're filling up that storehouse of rest, we're beginning to release stress at a rate that's more rapid than we can take on in any given day. So as a Vedic meditator, you're waking up every single day with less stress in the body. And by less stress in the body, I mean a reduction of stress memories and stress accumulation that act as the trigger points for how we interact with the world, right? By the time we're 20 years old, 100,000 stress triggers have been installed in our nervous system, right? That's just the way it goes. And, I'm 42. So if I am a non-meditator, I can easily do the math to say I'm creeping up into almost 250,000 of stress memories that we live with in every single day. And they live in, I don't like to use the word like subconscious mind necessarily, but they do live in like the background operating system of our mind and our awareness. So anytime, if something traumatic that had happened, and at the moment of the traumatic, stressful event, I was taking a look at my chai and I was drinking my morning chai, the next time I have the same smell of cardamom and jaggery from India, or the combination of the saffron and the cinnamon and the cloves, I could very well launch into stress reactivity, even if the entire circumstances of the environment were completely different and I wasn't actually in an actual stressful situation. So these stress memories are incredibly insidious and they infiltrate every single area of our life. And this is why we can't think our way to enlightenment, right? If we could, right? If we could work really hard and read all the books, we would all be, there would be a much larger portion of the population feeling like they don't suffer anymore, feeling like they can add to the collective bliss of the collective, right? Of the global consciousness state. But what we know is that you need that deep experience of rest to from a scientific level to release stress and stress memories from the body. But also, if we want to get a bit more spiritual about this, is when we begin to step beyond thought and have regularity of stepping beyond the thinking patterns that make up what it is that we think we are, right? We begin to touch that field of being, that field of totality, right? And that's that layer of awareness that exists deep inside every single one of us. And what that awareness will show us is, I am not my stress. I'm not my fear. I am not my trauma. What I am is the unbounded field of all possibilities. I am bliss. And when you meditate 20 minutes twice a day and you are able to access that with regularity, right, something fascinating begins to happen. Before meditation, I might have been 99% I am my stress, 1% maybe I'm not my stress. And we all have 1, 2, 5, 10% of that, or else we wouldn't be starting, beautiful podcast offerings like you are, or we wouldn't be signing up for an info session on Vedic meditation. There's a part of us that knows that we deserve the best in our life, and that this stress may be around, but it doesn't really belong here all the time. And so when we begin to step beyond our thoughts and experience being, because we're not doing anymore, we're being, we begin to imprint all of those beautiful qualities of totality consciousness within our own structure of identity, right? In Western psychological terms, they would call it our ego, right? And so we begin to infuse our identity with, I am totality, I am bliss, I am, the field of all possibilities. But instead of having affirmations and thinking about it from an intellectual level of the stressed individual, we're actually experiencing what that feels like inside our meditation practice. Okay. And so this is why it begins to become a really transformational practice, because on the level of the intellect, we can be like Bart Simpson, right? And just write affirmations, on the chalkboard all day. And certainly it has some benefits, right? Because one, there wouldn't be worldwide movements of journaling prompts and, beautiful offerings like, mantra affirmations, but they do hit a level of limitations in that if you're operating on the intellect from the foundation of lots and lots of stress, there will be only so much breakthrough you can experience until you relieve the pressure valve of those stress memories in the physiology. And so this is what we do in Vedic meditation. This is why it works for everybody, irrespective of what their life circumstances are, what they are feeling challenged with in their life, because what we're doing is we're beginning to infuse the body with rest, we're releasing stress, and we're beginning to restructure the identity of what we are through experience and not through a wish list that we find, in a book. And trust me, I've read all those books and I love them too. I really, really do. They help me so much in my journey, and every part of our journey is valid and crucial and loved, because it's so important to honor where we were, what we've been through, and where we're going. But when I found Vedic meditation, and it almost happened by accident, I just found the experience of it just through practicing it for less than a week. I was like, this is it. Like,
wow,
this is it for me. And I'm never going to go a day without meditating in this way again.
So it was fairly quickly then for you.
It is.
Results.
It is.
Is that pretty common?
It is really, really common. And the reason being is that, with most meditation offerings out there, and I know I listened to one of your podcasts, you use Insight Timer, right? And like, what a beautiful resource that is for the global community of seekers, and believers that there's a better way to live. But most of the practices on Insight Timer do have this, do share the quality of, concentration and focus, even if you're focusing on like the dulcet tones of a beautiful, of the voice of, a transformational meditation teacher. They're still asking you to focus on something. Now, they're not asking you to focus on an email from your boss or why your team is still trading Slack messages at 10 p.m. at night, right? So you're not focusing on that. So that's like, a good start. But it is still asking your mind to be engaged in something other than free thinking and free roaming. And so that's why mindfulness techniques, while they can feel like a nice break in the moment, they actually don't offer the level of relaxation as an effortless, automatic, self-transcending technique like Vedic meditation does. Because in the style of Vedic meditation, we say no focus, no concentration, no effort. And that contrast, even in the first 20-minute session that you'll have on the first day of the course with me, will feel like, it'll feel so completely different to the current experience of life that we all live day in and day out, that you begin on an experiential level to say, okay, all right, my mind actually can, some people would say turn off, but that's not the most accurate way to think about it. It can actually step beyond the thinking pattern. And what we begin to find too is that as we release stress systematically through this regular process of twice daily Vedic meditation, we the quality of our thoughts begin to change, right? So 60,000 to 100,000 unique thought events in any given day, right? That's the modern human experience. 90 to 98% of them repetitive thoughts from the day before and the day before and the day before. And a recent study has shown that up to 60% of the thoughts could be negative in nature, right? So we are swimming around in negative, repetitive thinking all the time. And why do we do that? Like, there must be a purpose, because no one wakes up thinking, I think I'm just going to drive myself crazy, thinking self-deprecating, and like sad, depressing thoughts all day. Like everyone wakes up wishing their life could feel good. Like we could feel authentic and feel in their body. So we have to start to dissect and understand, why do we have thoughts in the first place? Okay, so we think because the mind uses thinking patterns to get us to a happier place than we are right now, right? That's the whole process and point of from the Vedic worldview, the thinking process of the mind. And so some people would say, well, what does that really mean in actuality, right? It means we wake up in an unfulfilled state, right? We might be completely attached to what it is that we have, most likely attached to the things that we don't have, right? To the things that other people have that we think that we want. And so we wake up thinking, I want to get happy. I want to get happy. I want to get happy. And so those thought processes that happen day in and day out are for this, fruitless search of fulfillment that we're all, looking for in life. And then you add on the stress memories that we just talked about, right? Those hundreds of thousands of stress memories that are basically like little heat-seeking danger missiles out there trying to keep us safe, right? Stress is actually really great when we use it for like actual dangers, right? But for perceived dangers born out of stress accumulation, they are more of a nuisance to our fulfillment in life more than anything else. But so we have these stress memories that are acting as little, fear scavengers, right? In our mind. And what that does is we have, some sensory perception that comes in and it says, oh, is this dangerous? Is this safe? This is dangerous. This is safe. And, those 250,000 stress memories and a 42-year-old says, no, dangerous. I think that's dangerous. And then the mind says, okay, danger, danger, danger. How are we going to keep ourselves safe? And that's why the repetitiveness begins to come in, always we're reviewing the past. What could I have done better? Should I have sent that text? I don't know. I should have sent that text. Oh my goodness, that person didn't email me back. Does that mean they're mad at me? Should I send another email? No, I feel like that would make me seem a little bit too desperate, right? Or we're rehearsing the future. Oh my gosh, what do you think I should do? Am I living up to my full potential? gosh, should I be eating that bagel today? But bagel's high carb, I think like bagels shouldn't be great for me. But I heard that I'm supposed to follow my desires. Is bagel an actual desire? You start to think about all of these crazy things in your mind. And what do we lose in all that? We lose the present moment. And I know that you've done podcasts about the importance of the present moment, right? Mm-hmm. When you live on a foundation of stress, the present moment is not available to you. No. As much as you want it to be, stress runs on being hypervigilant, and how it begins to structure that hypervigilance is to look into the future to keep you safe and to review the past to make sure you don't make the same mistakes in the future so that you can be kept safe. And so what we do with this practice is we begin to relax the mind and relax the stress. That will have the added benefit of relaxing your thinking too. And so then instead of just, going on hyperdrive of thinking about the future or worrying about it or reviewing the past, we begin to really settle into the present moment, right? And then our present moment begins to expand and expand and expand. And we know these moments, we go for hikes. Right? You live in Arizona, one of the most beautiful places in the world. You go for these hikes and you feel the expansiveness. Why does time feel like it stands still for that moment? Right? Mm-hmm. Because your senses are so wowed and awed by everything that you're seeing that for a moment, those thoughts, those stressy thoughts begin to fade away, and you're just left with being able to soak everything in the present moment in. And so this is what we culture in Vedic meditation. Being mindful and present is not an active practice for a Vedic meditator. It is a beautiful byproduct of sitting down 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon. And what we do is we actually forget all about meditation throughout the day, right? We're like, we're not with these like, finished meditation, walk down the street, walking your dog, being like, I nailed that meditation. I'm such a great meditator. It's not like that. We view it as brushing our teeth in the morning, right? Or taking a shower in the morning. We cleanse the nervous system of stress. We power wash that stress away. And then, our full potential begins to shine naturally, and we go about and live our life in that easy and simple and natural way.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me because I do find with meditation, I prefer a guided meditation. And I think it's because it gives me something to focus on, which seems to shut the thinking down or the brain chatter off, but it doesn't really. It's just I'm concentrating on something. Yeah, but as soon as I stop, everything comes flooding back in. And that for me has been the hardest part about meditation. And I think for most people, they're like, I just can't sit still, quiet for a long period of time.
Yeah. And, I will share something that, is half joking, but kind of serious and a little controversial. There is not a huge difference between sitting down for a guided meditation and watching an episode of Ted Lasso.
Right.
Like both provide a wonderful respite and break from the thoughts, the ants in the pants feeling. And by the way, all of that symptoms of stress, right? We can talk about, I work with a lot of people, a lot of meditators who come from, PTSD support groups. I work with a lot of, students who also come from the corporate world. The students that I teach range, have a wide variety of life experiences that they come from. But what I see when I teach a student Vedic meditation is I see a level of stress, and I see a level of willingness from that student to not be stressed anymore, right? And so that's why, even though a guided meditation can feel really good in the moment, it's like feels great in the moment because your boss won't come in the door or you won't be checking your email, or you won't have that conversation. You're not expected to have that conversation that you've been putting off for all these days and hours while you're doing a guided meditation, right? So from that perspective, you can do a guided meditation. You can hop on your Peloton and take a ride. You can watch Ted Lasso. You can go walk your dog. All of those things I put in the bucket of taking a great break from what it is that you're doing right now. But what we want to be looking for in a meditation practice is, are you feeling better in the other 23 hours and 20 minutes of your life when you're not meditating, right? How's your sleep? How's your anxiety? How are you communicating with others? Are you showing up feeling like yourself? Do you feel comfortable in your own skin, right? Not only inside meditation, because I'm sure we can all come up with unique individual lists of dozens of other things that we can do spending our time, rather than sitting in for a meditation. And I'm not saying that, things don't have to, like, things can't feel joyful and we can't enjoy a sound bath, like huge sound bath junkie.
Right.
Like, love it so much. But what these things do lack, that Vedic meditation offers, is to rest the body into that hypometabolic state, meaning you are resting deeper than your waking state, because that is actually the only condition in which the body can release stress. Now, you don't only release stress when you practice Vedic meditation, right? The body has a normal, natural functioning, stress release system. It's called sleep.
Right.
And so what is so fascinating about it is that when we begin to practice Vedic meditation, we actually access a level of rest that's deeper than sleep. And so because of all the demands that we have, before we jumped on this podcast, we were kind of like reviewing our schedules for the day. Like, you got a lot going on, Cassie, right? And for everything that you're taking on and making a difference in this world, you are accumulating more stress in any given day than you can release in a night's sleep. And so when we practice Vedic meditation, we're building into dedicated deep rest experiences, so that when you combine those two restful experiences in a day, by the time you slide into bed to go to sleep, you're going to have a more restful sleep because you've already done a lot of stress release outside of sleep, so you can rest a little bit more deeply. And then you're going to wake up the next day knowing that you have less stress in the body than the day before.
Right. No, it's beautiful.
And that's why people find it so enjoyable to live life as a Vedic meditator, because not only does it provide that soothing, relaxing break inside any given day, twice a day, but you're also seeing it very clearly impact your life positively outside of meditation as well.
Yes. I'm assuming you have a bit of just like overall calmness that you carry with you throughout the day once you I don't want to say master, but once you're doing the practice for a while, I would assume that would happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you don't have to be a master at it or practice it for years and years and years. Within 4 days, 90 minutes each day, you will master Vedic meditation and already begin to feel way calmer as your backdrop state versus, how we felt before we learned Vedic meditation.
Right. No, I think that's wonderful. And earlier you were talking about stress and trauma, and there seems to be kind of a focus now on trauma. And I say that knowing that that's my focus, so I'm seeing more of it. But I am really curious about how trauma kind of gets trapped in the body. And I'm sure because it is a point of stress for most of us when something traumatic happens or a trauma event takes place, that stress does kind of get trapped in the body. Are we also talking about being able to kind of release that as well? Because it is a type of stress?
Absolutely. Yeah. In the working definition of trauma and stress, we can look at it as a stored memory of an overwhelming situation that happened in our life that was not met with interactivity from the physiology, right? So we can consider it like a maladaptive change of expectation. And this is sort of how it works. We wake up every single day with a bank balance of rest, right? We'll call it adaptation energy. This is a famous scientist named Hans Selye, who began the study of stress in the early 1900s. He developed this term called adaptation energy, which really describes the amount of we can call it like resiliency, or the amount of energy that we can put towards any action in our life. And so we wake up every morning also with an idea of how the day is going to shape up. Mm-hmm. And what we know is that because our modern day life is action packed and jammed and things change, like I was telling you before the podcast, I was like, I don't know if my headphones are going to work. Like, am I going to have to reschedule this podcast? Luckily it worked. That's why we're on right now today. But we have all these different changes of expectations, right? That are different than how we thought the day was going to go. Now, what begins to happen is this change of expectation gets served up in our life. And there's a command, right? The command is interact with this or react to it, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we have enough adaptation energy in the physiology at that moment to meet the level of demand, then we interact successfully. We would also feel waves of bliss for crushing that change in expectation. Like we all know the feeling like, oh my God, the paper's due, like thinking back to college days. And like we submit the paper and it's good and we do it on time. And we're like, okay, that's good. And we feel good about it. Okay. That is an example of interactivity with demands and changes of expectation in our life. But there's a cost to that, right? It begins to deplete the bank balance, right? Nothing comes for free, right?
Right. Of course not.
And so what begins to happen is we continually draw upon that bank balance of adaptation energy with each moving piece in our lives. And then something begins to happen at some point in our day or in our week or in our month where there is a change of expectation. It could be a big one like trauma, right? And we'll put trauma as a magnified, large, stressful event or change of expectation. Or it could even be, I really wanted artichoke pasta today for lunch, but I went to the store and they were out of my favorite artichokes. Something big or small. But if you don't have that adaptation energy stored in the body, what begins to happen? The body's like, I got to go find this energy somewhere. Adrenaline, cortisol, let's go find this energy, right? Mm-hmm. And so the body thinks we're going into, physical danger. So it says, all right, cardiovascular system, you need more energy, respiratory system, you got this, right? And so it ushers all of these resources to help us fight or flight this danger. By the way, we're talking about marinated artichokes from Whole Foods right now.
Right.
Okay. Let's keep that in mind, right? And, right, they say digestive system, I don't need you, that bagel you decided to eat earlier today. We don't need fuel for 2 weeks because that danger, saber-toothed tiger, neighboring villagers who want to, invade your territory, we might not be around in 15 minutes. I don't need to digest that bagel, right? Same thing with immune system. I don't need to produce antibodies right now, right? Because I need all of those resources in other parts of the systems of my body to handle this fight or flight situation that I've gotten myself in. And so what begins to happen is instead of interacting successfully with this demand of my favorite brand of marinated artichokes are not available, right? We begin to say, oh my God, danger. Oh my gosh, danger. We have to do something about this. And so we begin to have quite, the reaction that we have to changes of expectation in our life are not well matched. Mm-hmm. You might even find yourself, and I don't know if you've ever felt this in your life, but it's like, you've just had a really, really long day and, you're just looking forward to some one thing and that one thing doesn't pan out and you find yourself like crying over it or feeling completely disappointed or feeling completely defeated. And you're like, why do I care about this really, really small thing that's happening? Mm-hmm. It's actually not because we're not strong in our mind. It doesn't mean that we're not, resilient mentally. It doesn't mean that we have a character flaw. It actually means that adaptation level was not adequate in the body. And so what then begins to happen is two things happen, right? We go into stress reactivity that we just talked about, ushering all the resources, right? At the cost of other resources and, immune function, digestive function, reproductive function, all that stuff. But we also record everything that's been happening at that very moment to log as stress memories that we can draw upon the next time we think a similar danger might occur, right? This is the body's protective mechanism of saying, hey, like, Cassie, I got you, girl. Like this doesn't feel good right now, but I'm going to do my best to try and make you feel good next time this happens. And so we can't really blame the body. The body's trying to do great things. And this is an inherited, right, Darwinian, survival technique that we've been so blessed with for the last, million years or so. Right. But it's not really super relevant for where we are today in our modern day life. And so when we talk about trauma or we talk about stress, this is really at the core of it all, accumulated memories of these overloads of experiences in our life. And what can happen is once we get re-triggered, it actually makes the memory sort of like rise up in the priority rank of all the other stress memories that we have in our life, right? Think of it as like the New York Times bestseller list or something. It just keeps on going up and up and up and up. And what begins to happen is we become completely hair triggered by any small whiff of a stress memory that might cause some perceived danger in our lives. And this is why, for those who suffer from traumatic situations and are dealing with PTSD, it can feel like you're in a dark place. It can feel like there's no way out at the moment that you can see right now, because every little thing feels like it's going to trigger you, right? And so what we want to do is we want to get to the root of all this, right? Because what we know is that these stress memories are there because the body is fatigued. If we have enough rest in the body, so going back to this balance of rest, right? Two things will happen. Once you begin to raise your level of adaptation energy, you begin to dissolve a lifetime's worth of stress memories in the body. And as you know, like that has a transformative effect on every single experience of your life. But what begins to also happen is that when you're starting to feel a little bit low on your adaptation energy, guess what? We have our second meditation to look forward to in that day, right? We don't have to go to Starbucks and have our Rice Krispie treat like I used to do at 2 p.m. every day, right? We don't need that sugar hit. We don't need, whatever it is that we're putting in our bodies to cope. We begin to sit down and meditate, and then that adaptation energy just comes right back up. And this is the beauty of this meditation practice, in that, there's nothing wrong with getting stressed. Like we said, like it's actually a beautiful, normal functioning of how we survive in this world. The issue is staying stressed. And the issue is the problematic nature of fight or flight syndrome is that it's being triggered in contexts that are no longer relevant to the actual danger that's around right now. And so, when I work with meditators who have been living with traumatic memories and have been living with PTSD for a long time, what we do is that, we don't make any outlandish promises to say like, meditate, it's a 4-day meditation course, 90 minutes each day. So I am not out there saying, oh yeah, after 4 days, like they're going to be gone, right? You're not going to feel it. But what's going to happen is you're going to start to feel the grip of those stress memories begin to loosen its grip on our mind and our general feelings of happiness in life. And depending on how deeply ingrained these stress memories are, we'll continue to work on it. But what we see is that within 5 to 8 years of regular practice of Vedic meditation, your physiology will be freed of every single stress memory that's been accumulated since the time you were in utero. So for, the marinated artichoke, stress, of yesterday, that might be a 10-minute meditation stress that unwinds immediately, right? Within half of a meditation session, Susan's no longer feeling stressed out about her pasta dish that didn't come together. But for somebody who has suffered abuse, for somebody who has been a witness of a tragic accident, for somebody who has been met with bullying for years in their life, that might be a 500 meditation sitting. That might be a 2,000 meditation sitting, right? But that's okay. That's okay. We don't need the entire body to be completely stress-free to start to feel amazing in our lives. Right. All we need is that contrast and that tunnel of possibilities. And this is what any doctor will tell you, right?
Absolutely.
Patients who come see them, the times in which they feel the most despondent, the times in which they feel the most hopeless is when they don't have the diagnosis yet, when they don't know when they're going to start to feel better. They feel like they don't have the answers. And that's where a lot of us come to before we learn a practice of meditation, like Vedic meditation. We just don't know we don't know that there's a possibility of the way out. You start to practice this 20 minutes twice a day, you start to feel incrementally better, right? 20 minutes twice a day. And you start to see the path towards possibilities, towards feeling like enlightenment isn't only for people who've had idyllic lives, right? And you start to really embrace the fact that your trauma, your stress, and your stories are relevant and necessary in life so we can act as guideposts and inspiration for all those who come after us as well. And so that's how we deal with trauma in Vedic meditation.
Yeah, I love that. The couple of things triggered in my brain as you were talking. The rest doesn't necessarily mean sleep for everyone. I just want to clarify that. And then also, I love when people get into the fact that stress, anxiety are actually damaging to the body. And meditation really is one of the key things that can make a huge difference. And like you said, there are different ways to meditate out there. And I think it's finding that thing that works for you. And that's what I love about exploring different meditations and people who are doing different things to relieve stress, because I had a brain scan at one time and they were like, girl, you're like brain on fire. It was like, as soon as I closed my eyes, my brain would just go into like overdrive. And I did start meditation it's been quite a few years now. And I really just like to practice where I journaled. I had a few affirmations and I would just blankly listen to music. Like there would be soft music going and I didn't really have any thoughts. I would basically just sit there. At the time, I don't think I realized that was a true meditation. I was just sitting, enjoying connecting with the universe is what I call it.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful. But I love that there are very specific thought and practices to this that specifically help relieve, reduce, and get rid of that stress,
and
anxiety
eliminate
piece.
Stress. Yeah, absolutely. And what I think is so beautiful about exploring other styles of meditation is I don't think I would have had the appreciation for practicing and teaching what it is that I teach now without going through the hoops and hurdles of figuring out which one worked best for me, and what I find most is that for any routine, but especially meditation, to feel like you can stick to it and have like a daily habit is it needs to one feel like you're enjoying it, right? And even if not in the moment, you're enjoying the practice of it, or there's something about the practice that you enjoy. And then you also need to experientially be able to look from a very objective and neutral position to say, this is having an effect in my life that is commensurate with the time, the resources, the attention that I'm placing on this technique, right? And so if you have both of them, then like you're really on to something. Then you know that this thing is actually working for you. And I think what can happen sometimes is when we have these meditation techniques, and by the way, like if you go on YouTube these days, there's like tens of thousands of different types of like techniques. There's like a meditation for when your left big toe is feeling a little off today, like meditation for, meditation for plantar fasciitis, like whatever it is, there's all of this stuff out there. But what we want to know, right? And this is for people who are like actually pretty serious about wanting to cultivate a meditation technique, is
Right.
what are the benefits? Who has practiced this, right? Does it come from a lineage where, you know, that we connect with and we know is real, right? And so with Vedic meditation, it's like people have been practicing this for thousands and thousands of years. There are millions of people around the world have demonstrated, you know, the ease and bliss that they can come from it. And then also it's like, who's going to be your teacher? Like, who's going to guide you through the process? And this is the one thing that I find to be incredibly helpful in finding a meditation teacher. When I lived in New York, I lived on 15th Street, down the street from the Tibet House. It's been a little while since I've headed down that way, so I don't know if the Tibet House is still open. But Sharon Salzberg used to do like a residency there, and she used to teach out of the Tibet House really quite often. And because I lived literally 4 doors down from it, like anytime she was in town, like I was there. You know, I was there listening to her. And the thing that, and I love her and I really enjoy following her work, but I think the thing that was missing for me in terms of my connection with what she teaches is that I learned with her through her books, right? I learned with her through these big lectures, and there were all these different styles of meditations that she teaches as well, all in their own right, beautiful and, you know, great relaxation techniques as well. But connecting with Sharon on the intellectual level really wasn't enough for me. I needed that experience of deep rest, right? That experience of being, right? That state of supreme intercontentedness where I don't have any preconceived notions of, you know, Susan being a bad girl or Susan being undeserving of her life or Susan who makes all those mistakes, right? All of that gets put to the side and Susan is totality. Okay, that's kind of rad. Let's come back out into life and see what effect that has. And so, you know, that was the biggest difference for me. You know, I connected with a Vedic meditation teacher. You know, I continued to study with the preeminent, you know, authority of the Vedic tradition. His name is Tom Knowles. And, you know, he has been a huge mentor and guide in my life and really connecting with this really huge body of knowledge that's known, you know, as Veda. And yeah, you know, I encourage anyone who's interested in advancing their practice, like trust your instincts. If something feels good to you and you feel like when you're practicing it, you're feeling the benefits of it, then like go with that. You know, meditation is not supposed to feel like you're going to the dentist,
right?
You know, and sorry to all the dentists that are listening out there, you know,
no one likes going to the dentist,
or those who might actually enjoy going to the dentist. But it's not supposed to feel like a chore, right? If you find the right meditation technique, it should be something that you wake up and you're excited to do. And even when you're not excited to do it, you make the priority to do it anyways, because you know that in all those 23 hours of your life, you're gaining huge benefits from it.
Yes. Well, how would someone connect with you? Because I know you do the course. How do we get connected?
So I teach monthly courses in New York and Los Angeles, and I teach courses in Austin 4 times a year. So the next step, if anyone is curious to learn more about Vedic meditation, is to visit my website and sign up for a free introductory talk. And it's 45 minutes or an hour, and we get to talk all about Vedic meditation and what benefits it might bring into your life.
Love that. And go ahead and say your website.
Yes, meditatewithsusan.com.
Fantastic. And I will put that in the description on all the platforms, so it will be there for everyone. And then one other thing that I found when I was on your website is you also have something really cool called Soozy's Grain Free.
Yes.
And I was on there looking. You have some amazing, like, I'm going to click over there and take a look at it right now, because I was just like, it's just crazy what you have, like muffins, you've got cookies, donuts, bread, bagels,
Yes.
and they look amazing. And they're
Yes.
all, talk a little bit about it, because they're like
Mhm.
grain-free, dairy-free, non-GMO, gluten-free.
Yes. So when I left Wall Street in 2016, I was working in finance as a research analyst, then the head of research, then a portfolio manager. I knew that it was time for a transition in my life. It wasn't this like eat, pray, love moment where I learned to meditate and then like I gave up on my worldly belongings.
Right.
I learned to meditate, and then I had the 3 best years of my career afterwards. Like
Nice.
Total ease, total surrender was at the top of my game, and it just flowed very, very easily for me and joyfully. But then, as all great things, it was time for a transition. And so I left in 2016 and spent the better part of the next year in India studying the style of meditation and training with the preeminent masters of this tradition in India, and also learning a lot about Ayurveda, which is the sister science, of Vedic meditation, on how to take care of the mind and the body from the perspective of perfect health and not from the perspective of disease. So
I like that.
Out of all of that, Soozy's was born. Basically, we wanted to create something that was really, really nutritious, something that was easy for moms to be able to throw in their kids' lunch boxes or give to the kids after school or for breakfast. And we started off with a line of muffins that are super tasty and delicious. And then we wound up rolling out breads and bagels, speaking of bagels, and also a line of cookies as well. So Soozy's grain-free is, you can find them at about 4,000 stores nationwide. We are national with Whole Foods, as well as a lot of regional supermarkets and retailers out there as well. But I always like to say that Soozy's was like the firstborn of my meditation practice, because for the first time I was like, okay, like there's something else out there besides working in the corporate world. Like I see it now, and it's really allowed me to make great connections in the world, really step into the life of an entrepreneur and running a small team, and really begin to create something from the ground up.
Yeah. That's another thing I love about meditation is I do find it spurs more creativity.
Absolutely.
I love that. And I will put the link to Soozy's grain-free in the description as well, because I do think it's an amazing product. I haven't tried it. It's on when next time I go to Whole Foods, I'm going to grab some because it looks like it's amazing. And the grain-free is a big thing for me, and gluten-free, we're really focused on that.
Yeah. And the great thing, the thing about creativity too, Cassie, is like, what would your mind be up to if it wasn't stressed out all the time?
Right.
What would your mind be thinking and creating if you weren't rehearsing the future and reviewing the past?
What a beautiful thought, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, Susan Chen, it's been lovely connecting and chatting and learning from you.
So great to make the connection, and it will be the first of many conversations I look forward to having with you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. And to everyone out there, thank you for tuning in, listening, watching. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see y'all next week. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button to follow us and receive new episodes each week. If you really enjoy the podcast and you're feeling generous, please hit the donate button. We work hard to create original content and keep the podcast ad-free.